in their activity, and they were Iqtadar, Mansabdars, and Jagirdars. Now, two major categories that we find in ruling state that evolved during the Delhi Sultanate and Mughal period, they were Iqtadar and Mansabdar. And as we know that what is their political authority, what is their political concern, that is a different thing. But as we know, Turkish ruler they paid their nobility in the form of some assignment, assigned revenue assignment, taking some land or some areas under consideration into account. And these form of revenue assignments are called iktas. And the holder of these iktas came to be known as iktadar or wali or muktis. Again repeating, the holder of iktas are called iktadar, wali or muktis. What was the meaning of ikta? Ikta is a revenue assignment of on a particular region, on a particular area. So we can say that ଦୁଇଟା ତିନିଟା ଦଶଟା ଗାଁକୁ ନେଇ ଗୋଟେ ଇକ୍ତା ତିଆରି ହେଉଥିଲା ଯାହାଟାକୁ ଗୋଟେ ଲୋକକୁ ଦିଆହେଉଥିଲା ଯେଉଁ ଲୋକ ସବରାନଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ବା ସମ୍ରାଟଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ବା ସୁଲତାନଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ପ୍ରିୟ ପାତ୍ର ଥିଲା ବା ତାଙ୍କର ବିଶ୍ୱାସ ଭାଜନ ହେଇଥିଲା ବା ତା ନିଜର କୌଣସି କର୍ତ୍ତୃତ୍ୱ ବଳରେ ସୁଲତାନଙ୍କୁ ସେ ଖୁସି କରାଇ ପାରିଥିଲା ସେଇମାନଙ୍କୁ ଇକ୍ତା ପ୍ରଦାନ କରାଯାଉଥିଲା and what was the role of this iktadar? These were generally assigned to these assignment were generally assigned to the people very close to the administration or having some political influence. And iktadars, what was the role? As I told you, iktadars were supposed to maintain law and order in the territory and extract land revenue. And generally, this land revenue was not totally consumed by the iktadar. Maximum portion of the land revenue was to be deposited in the central treasury, and that was called faujil. Generally, provincial administration was headed by muktis and walis, and they were also called iktadar. And now, thing is that iktadar were not enjoying their rights on hereditary basis. Ikta did not imply a right over land, nor they were hereditary. Iktas were transferable as long as they were enjoying the blessing as well as support of the sovereign, that is Sultan, they were enjoying it. When Sultan did not like to extend his support or blessing on that iktadar, then his role is over. So, during Firoz Shah Tughlaq time, the iktadari system became hereditary. Another thing is that another class of nobility that came to exist during the time of Mughal rule very specifically, they were called Mansabdar. All Mughal rulers, all Mughal nobles, they were Mansabdar. And this Mansab was of a varied form. It was depending upon the number of horses, horsemen, and soldier that one person or one Mansabdar was having under his control. So we can say that Mansab was a rank which was conferred over the person of noble blood from a very decent lineage, having some um, achievement to his credit. And Mansab determined the status of nobles in the Mughal hierarchy. And as I told you, Mansabdars were not homogeneous. All Mansabdars were not same. We do not come across the name of Mansabdar or the star Mansabdar during Babur's rule. From Akbar onward, we get this term frequently in different sources, and during the Akbar's reign, perhaps this Mansabdari started. As I told you, Mansabdar of two types, dual in nature, Jat and Sawar. Jat determined the personal pay and his status in the hierarchy, and Sawar solely indicated the number of horses and horsemen to be maintained by Mansabdar. I have already told you. Depending upon the number of horses, horsemen, and soldier under his control, that is to be determined, and that Sawar that is a class of Mansabdar having some sort of high rank. Granting Mansab was the prerogative of the emperor. The most favored category belonged to the son and close kinsmen of those already in the imperial service. କୋଉମାନଙ୍କୁ ମନସବ ଗ୍ରାଣ୍ଟ କରାଯାଇ ପଡୁଥିଲା? ଯୋଉମାନେ ଅଲରେଡି ବାଦଶାହ ବା ସୁଲତାନଙ୍କ ଶାସନରେ ଚାକିରିରେ ଅଛନ୍ତି, ତାଙ୍କ ଚାକିରି କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ରାଜକୀୟ ସେବା ଯୋଗାଉଛନ୍ତି, ସେମାନଙ୍କର କିନ୍ ପୁଅ ବା ତାଙ୍କର ଲାଇନରେ କେହି ଯଦି ସେଭଳିଆ ବୀର ବା ହିରୋ ଡିଡ୍ କରୁଛି, ସେଇମାନଙ୍କୁ ସାଧାରଣତଃ ମନସବଦାରୀ ଦିଆଯାଉଥିଲା। ଦେନ୍ ହ୍ୱାଟ ଇଜ ଜାଗିରଦାରୀ? ମନସବଦାର ଏବଂ ଇକ୍ତାଦାର ଭଳିଆ ଜାଗିରଦାରୀ ମଧ୍ୟ ସେୟା। ବୋଥ ଦି land holders, Mansabdar was also a land holder, he was getting some land, Iqtadar was also getting some land, so both were also Jagirdar. So largely Mansabdar and Iqtadar, they were paid in the form of Jagir. Jagirdar, they were called Jagirdar, Talukdar under the Mughals. What was the nature or how it was done? The nobles were generally assigned a territory to collect a portion of the produce, that is a revenue, in lieu of their salaries in specific areas. ଯେମିତି ଆମେ ଆର୍ଲି ମିଡିଆଲ ଫେଜରେ ଦେଖିଛେ, ଗୁପ୍ତ ଏଜରେ ଦେଖିଛେ, ଯେଉଁ ଯୁଗ ଜିନିଷଟା ଅଲରେଡି ପ୍ରାଚୀନ ସମୟରୁ ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଇଯାଇଥିଲା ଭାରତରେ, ଯେ ରାଜକର୍ମଚାରୀମାନଙ୍କୁ ସେ ସମୟରେ କିଛି ଜମି ବା କିଛି ଅଞ୍ଚଳ, କିଛି ଏରିଆ ଦିଆଯାଉଥିଲା, ଯେଉଁଠୁ କି ସେମାନେ ଖଜଣା ଆଦାୟ କରୁଥିଲେ, କର ଆଦାୟ କରୁଥିଲେ, ସେଥିରେ ସେମାନେ ଚଳୁଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ସେ ଗାଁରେ ରହୁଥିବା ବିଭିନ୍ନ ସେବାକାରୀମାନେ, ସେବା ଯୋଗାଉଥିବା ବ୍ୟକ୍ତିମାନେ ସେବା ଯୋଗାଉଥିଲେ ମାଗଣାରେ, ଏବଂ ଏଇଭଳି ଭାବରେ ରାଜକର୍ମଚାରୀମାନେ ତାଙ୍କର ପାଉଣା ବା ଦରମା ପାଇଯାଉଥିଲେ। ଆଜି ଯେମିତି ଆମେ ଚାକିରି କଲେ ଦରମା ପାଉଛେ ଟଙ୍କା ଆକାର, କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ ସମୟରେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଜାଗିର ଦିଆଯାଉଥିଲା। ସୋ ଜାଗିରଦାର was nothing but holder of some land in lieu of his service to the state. ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ରକୁ ବା ରାଜ୍ୟକୁ ନିଜର ଯୋଉ ସର୍ଭିସ ବା ଯୋଉ ସେ ସେବା ଦଉଛି ତା ବଦଳରେ ଯୋଉ ଦରମା ପାଇବା କଥା ତା ବଦଳରେ ତାକୁ ଗୋଟେ ଜାଗିର ମିଳୁଥିଲା। So in this way we say that Mansabdar and Iqtadar, they were also a Jagirdar. So Jagirdar used to appoint their own agents, one officer, to collect revenue, and they were generally called Gumasta or Amil. In this way we see that Jagirdar was having some control over this area that has been assigned to him. Now, if Jagirdar became very much oppressive or tyrant, then there was another post that was also appointed by central government during Mughal period as well as Delhi Sultanate period, and that was Diwan, who was looking after the collection of revenue of that province, and he was having a close look over this Jagirdar. Jagirdar ସବୁ କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକଳାପକୁ ସେ ନିରୀକ୍ଷଣ କରୁଥିଲା ଏବଂ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ତାକୁ ଆପଏଣ୍ଟମେଣ୍ଟ ଦିଆଯାଇଥିଲା ଏବଂ ଖଜଣା ଆଦାୟର ମଧ୍ୟ ସେ ତଦାରଖ କରୁଥିଲା ଏବଂ ଜାଗିରଦାର ଯଦି ଅପ୍ରେସିଭ ହଉଥିଲା, ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କ ଉପରେ ଅତ୍ୟାଚାର କରୁଥିଲା, କୃଷକମାନଙ୍କ ଉପରେ ଅତ୍ୟାଚାର କରୁଥିଲା, then that was also mentioned or intimated to the Sultan or the highest royal official. And that does not mean that oppression over peasants was stopped by the Jagirdar. We have also accounts from different sources that sometimes the oppression of Jagirdar was so much that people used to flee from the territories of Jagirdar to the territories of Raja or some other territories where they were getting some scope or relief. ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କ ଉପରେ ଅତ୍ୟାଚାର ହେଉଥିଲା ଏବଂ ଜାଗିରଦାରଙ୍କ କବଳ ରକ୍ଷା ପାଇବା ପାଇଁ ସେମାନେ ବାହାରକୁ ପଳେଇ ଯାଉଥିଲେ. So besides that, these were the three most politically active elites, urban-based elite. Then social and racial composition of these elites, we see that what was social and racial composition of these elite? We can say that there were many races of people who were responsible for the composition of this elite mass. They were mainly having foreign origin, mainly from Turks, because Turks were first. Then Iranians were there, Afghans were there, and there were also Indian Muslims who were also enjoying some sort of support as well as some blessing from the sultans. And what we see that those Indian Muslims were having Jagir or Iktaj, or they were having some support. They were generally converted Muslim. And sometimes this conversion was done forcibly, जबरदस्ती कन्वर्सन कराउला. केते जगह रे जेतले 13 14 सेंचुरी एडी बेलकू बा 15 सेंचुरी एडी बेलकू सुफिज्म स्प्रेडेड ओवर इंडिया. केते जन किछि लोक, हिंदू लोक सुफी धर्म एवं सुफीवाद द्वारा अनुप्राणित होइकि मुसलमान धर्म रे से माने निजको परिणत कर देथिले. एवं ता बादे इंडिविजुअल को छड़ा बेले बेले जेतले कोनोसी गुटे अंचल बा कोनोसी गुटे प्रगणार जदि कोनोसी गुटे क्लान रो गुटे ट्राइब रो हेडमैन जदि कन्वर्ट हो जाउतला, ता सहित एंटायर ट्राइब मध्य कन्वर्ट हो जाउतले. सो वी सी दैट Combos of Punjab, they were originally Hindus and they were peasant community. And in Multan region they were living and they embraced Islam under the influence of Surawardi Sufi saint Buhauddin Zakaria. By 15th century they emerged as prominent ulema or scholar. Similarly, there are many references where we see that these people, they became convert and also they came to occupy prominent place in the Muslim world in India and considered as urban, considered as elite class. Besides that, only Turkish, Iranian, Afghan or Muslim, there were also Hindu elite class. Those were also receiving favor from the Sultan of Delhi. For example, under Alauddin Khilji, there were nobles like Rai Ram Dev of Devgir who received the patronage of Alauddin, and he received the title of Rai Rayan. Similarly, Malik Naik was made Mukta of Samana or Sunam. Hindu also received patronage under Muhammad bin Taghlaq. And we know that during Mughal period, especially during the time of Akbar, Hindu, mainly Rajput clan, they were the most receiver of royal patronage. Akbarଙ୍କ ସମୟରେ ଆମେ ଜାଣିଛୁ ହିନ୍ଦୁ ମାନେ ମୁଖ୍ୟତଃ ରାଜପୁତ କ୍ଲାନ୍ ଲୋକମାନେ ଆକବରଙ୍କ ଠାରୁ ଯଥେଷ୍ଟ ଅବଦାନ ପାଉଥିଲେ, ଯଥେଷ୍ଟ ଆକବରଙ୍କ ସପୋର୍ଟ ପାଉଥିଲେ। ଉଦାହରଣ ସ୍ୱରୂପ ଆମେ ମାନସିଂ ରାଜା ମାନସିଂଙ୍କ ନାଁ ନେଇପାରିବା ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ଆକବରଙ୍କ ଦରବାରରେ ଯୋଉମାନେ ନବରତ୍ନ ଥିଲେ ତାଙ୍କ ଭିତରୁ ଅନେକ ହିନ୍ଦୁ ଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ତା ବାଦେ ତୋରଣମଲ ଯିଏକି ଆକବରଙ୍କର ଜମି ଜମା ରେଭିନ୍ୟୁ ଏବଂ ତା ସହିତ ରେକର୍ଡ ସଜାଡ଼ିଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ସମ୍ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଭାରତର ସେ ସମୟରେ ବନ୍ଦୋବସ୍ତ ଜମି ବନ୍ଦୋବସ୍ତ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଆକବରଙ୍କୁ ସାହାଯ୍ୟ କରିଥିଲେ ମୋଗଲ ଆଡମିନିଷ୍ଟ୍ରେସନକୁ। ତୋରଣମଲ ଜଣେ ହିନ୍ଦୁ ଥିଲେ। ସୋ ଆକବରଙ୍କ ସହିତ ଯୋଉ ଆମେ କଥା ହଉ ବୀରବଲ ସିଏ ମଧ୍ୟ ହିନ୍ଦୁ ଥିଲେ। ସାଧାରଣତଃ ଆମେ ଆକବର ବୀରବଲ ଷ୍ଟୋରି ପଢୁ। ସିମିଲାରଲି ଆକବରଙ୍କର ଅତ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଘନିଷ୍ଠ ମିତ୍ର ଭାବେ ପରିଚିତ ଏବଂ ସଙ୍ଗୀତଜ୍ଞ ତାନସେନ ମଧ୍ୟ ହିନ୍ଦୁ ଥିଲେ। ସୋ ଏଇଭଳି ଭାବରେ ଖାଲି ଇଲାଇଟ୍ କ୍ଲାସ ଭିତରେ Turkish by Iranian by ଅନ୍ୟାନ୍ୟ Afghan, they were not included. There were also Hindu who were also receiving patronage. Besides, there were also Maratha and Jaina. Maratha were also Hindu, Jaina people who were receiving patronage. Now, power position of this elite class, besides this Iqtadar, Mansabdar and Talukdar, having their political power and political role. But what other ruling elite were doing? First of all, it has been seen from different sources that during this time of medieval period, when I'm talking about Delhi Sultanate or Mughal India, we see that the maximum wealth of the country was accumulated with these noble. এই ନବୁଲଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ସାରା ଭାରତର ଯେତିକି ଅର୍ଥ ଥିଲା ତାର ମ୍ୟାକ୍ସିମମ୍ ପରିମାଣ এই ନବୁଲ ମାନଙ୍କ ଉପରେ ଥିଲା। During Shahjahan's rule, for example, concentration of resources in the hands of Mansabdar holding 500 horses and above were 6.1 of the total Jama estimated revenue. ଯେତିକି revenue collection ହଉଥିଲା ମନସବଦାର ଯେତିକି ଥିଲେ ଯୋଉମାନେ 500 ରୁ ଅଧିକା ଘୋଡ଼ା ରଖୁଥିଲେ ତାଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଥିଲା 61.5 ଜମା। ସିମିଲାରଲି ଅନ୍ୟାନ୍ୟ ମନସବଦାର ମାନଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ସେଇଭଳିଆ ପରିମାଣରେ ପଇସା ଜମା ଥିଲା। Besides what these Mansabdar, Iqtadar they were doing, they were involved in trade, industry, like things. As I told you, besides having land revenue as their one main source of income, in lieu of salaries from the government, these Mansabdars were involved in overseas trade. During this time, we see that Tavernier, who was a foreign European traveler, came to India. He has given an account in his memoir. Memoir means Bibarani. That on arrival for embarkation at Surat, one can find plenty of money. And it is the principal trade of the nobles of India to place their money on vessels on speculation for Hormuz, Basra, and Mocha, and even for Bentam, Asin, and Philippines. ତାଙ୍କର କହିବା କଥା ହେଲା ନବୁଲ ମାନେ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ ପଇସା ତାଙ୍କ ଦରମା ବଦଳରେ ଯୋଉ ରେଭିନ୍ୟୁ ଇତ୍ୟାଦି ସେମାନେ ଆଦାୟ କରୁଥିଲେ ସେ ପଇସା ଗୁଡ଼ିକୁ ସେମାନେ ଓଭରସିଜ୍ ଟ୍ରେଡରେ ଲଗାଉଥିଲେ। ତା ଫଳରେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଫର୍ଦର ଇନକମ୍ ହଉଥିଲା ବା ଫର୍ଦର ଲାଭ ହଉଥିଲା। So in this way we get a number of reference from different sources that how nobles were involved in trading activity. Besides trading activity, These nobles also managed huge industry, karkhana, huge industry, karkhana. And during Firoz Shah's time, we see that the princes and nobles were interested in establishing karkhana and in various karkhana in different towns, and they employed these slaves and other people, wage earner in this karkhana for the production. Even Shahjahan's daughter Jahanara Begum also maintained a karkhana. Now, the thing is that these nobles were not only maintaining their own trade or maintaining their industry, or they were not earning from the land revenue. They were not only earning money or after running after money. They were also doing some charity, constructing havelis. Sarai means resting place, hotel, motel, which were situated on the side of the highway connecting different towns. These are called sarais. Mosque and tombs, garden tanks, and these things were built by the noble. And also, noble were encouraging and patronizing orphanage, and also they were helping the poor people to give their daughter in marriage by giving them the money for the dowries. ଗରିବ ଲୋକମାନେ ତାଙ୍କ ଝିଅ ବାହାଘର କଲା ବେଳକୁ ଡାଉରୀ ସିଷ୍ଟମ ତ ସେତେବେଳକୁ ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେଇଯାଇଥିଲା। ଯଦି ଯୌତୁକ ଦେଇପାରୁନଥିଲେ ଏଇ ନୋବେଲ ମାନେ ଗରିବ ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ ମଧ୍ୟ ଦଉଥିଲେ। So in this way, what we see that this nobility exercised a great deal of influence on the social matter. Not only that, they also played a very interesting and important role in the economic matter of the state. And they were based in urban centers, small towns, Kasbah, or big towns like Delhi. Besides, we see that there were also different types of other social groups that we are going to discuss in short, in brief. Now, with the Turkish and Mughal rule in India, we see that a number of people, large number of group of people, they accepted Islam. I've already told you, some were forced, some were motivated by the royal patronage. किछि लोगों को बाध्य कराए कि इस्लाम रे भर्ती कराला खंडा तरवारी माध्यम रे। किछि लोक राजा बा सुल्तानकर अनुग्रह आशा करिकि इस्लाम रे पसिले, सरकारଙ୍କର बा राजनैतिक अनुग्रह को आशा करिकि, and some also converted willingly as a result of Sufi influence. And the result is that this process of acculturation, the transformation, was new social group. या फଳରେ जो एक्लट्रेशन है, जो विभिन्न संस्कृतिर सम्मिश्रण है, ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन है, परिवर्तन है, तार रिजल्ट थिला कौन? तार रिजल्ट थिला नूतन सामाजिक गोष्ठी मानकर संरचना, न्यूली फॉर्म्ड सोशल ग्रुप्स. दिस वाज द रिजल्ट. Now, some social groups accepted Islam as a matter of their clan affinity. I've already told you at the outset that if the chief of the clan got converted, The entire clan followed the suit. One such group was Qaim Khanis, and that accepted Islam through this process. And they were generally Chauhan Rajput of Danera. Now, under Firoz Tughlaq's rule, during the Firoz Tughlaq rule, and under the Firoz Noble Said Nazir, the chief of this Rajput clan accepted Islam and came to be known as Qaim Khan. And as a result, entire clan of this Qaim Khan became Muslim. And those who came to be the follower of Muslim lifestyle were known as Muslim Qaim Khanis. And those who continued with their traditional custom and practices were known as Hindu Qaim Khanis. It means among this clan there were two things. Those who continued with the old tradition, Hindu tradition, they were called Hindu Qaim Khanis, and those accepted Islam as well as followed Muslim lifestyle, they became Muslim Qaim Khanis. So these are the some sort of references, idea that we can get how the social groups, newly formed social group, come into existence. Similarly, there were many things that we can say that Islamization of the society to some extent transformed the social group and their lifestyle. Now, under such condition, what we see that there were also some Muslims who were called Deshwali Muslims, who were generally Rajput converts. But these Deshwali Muslims, they were converts, they adopted accepted Islam, but they largely followed Hindu customs and rituals, except marriage customs. The marriage custom was performed through nikah under the presence of Kaji. But other customs that remained more or less same with Hindu, only marriage custom and death rite, that is to bury the dead. And on account of this geographical situation, the Deshwali Muslims of eastern and western Rajasthan, on account of their proximity to Agra and Delhi, converted to Islam more. Similarly, the story of individually getting absorbed within the society after accepting Islam appeared to be somewhat different than those where entire clan adopted new religion. कहर कथा होची जो क्लान टा संपूर्ण भाव इस्लामाइजेशन हो गला इस्लाम को ग्रहण करनेला तार चाली चलन एवं जो माने इंडिविजुअली इस्लाम ग्रहण कले सेमानकर लाइफस्टाइल भितर किछिटा तफात थिला. Now, next point, that professional class. First of all, there was emergence of a middle class during this time. It is generally proposed that the word middle class or the emergence of this class, middle class, developed quite late. In the context of Europe, it is in the late 14th century. This class in Europe constituted mainly merchants and other professional groups like medical practitioner, craftsmen like that. But during this time in India, what was the condition? Some historians they say that in India during medieval time there was a strong middle class present, while some historians used to debate on it. For them, there was only two class of people existing in medieval society. One was that we just discussed that elite mass, Sambhranta Sreni Loko. Another class was constituted of low class people or servitudes, those who were giving service. Besides that, there was no other class in between that to term them as a middle class. Now, but we are not very much interested to accept this view that middle class was not at all present during this middle time or medieval time. This statement comes with Burnier's statement that under the Mughals there existed no middle class. But we see that there were merchants, but the question will emerge that trade was being carried by these nobles, elite mass that already we have discussed. But there were traders who were not in the category of nobles or this elite. They were not Iqtadar, Jagirdar or like that. But they were trading as common men. Similarly, there were teachers, architect, poet, scholar, medicine man, that is doctor, physician, painters, master craftsmen, and also bureaucratic people of lower bureaucratic order, छोटिया कर्मचारी, किरानी इत्यादि जो माने. So they were to be considered as middle class living during this time. Now, coming to professional class, we see a number of profession during this time, as present time or in ancient time. Medieval time was not an exception. So different professions were there, and we see that medical practitioners were there, artists were there, petty bureaucrats were there, and there were also people of caste. Caste means ଆମର ଓଡ଼ିଶାରେ ଯୋଉଟାକୁ ଆମେ କରଣ ବୋଲି କହିପାରିବା. And they also emerged as a prominent caste or class during medieval time. They were the people who dominated the scribe sphere or scribing during or record keeping. Scribe माने लेखिबा. Record keeping माने जिनस पत्र को record करिके रखिबा, साहित्य के रखिबा. They dominated in the skill of scribe as well as record keeping. And they also got employment under the Mughal administration in large number. Similarly, another group, social group, also a caste group, Hindu caste group, Kshatris. They also emerged as a prominent class in Delhi, Punjab region during 14th century. They were expert. They were considered to be expert in accountancy and arithmetic, and they were employed in revenue department of the administration. Medical practitioner also got importance during this time because they were always said to be important. In ancient time in India, there were the great physician and surgeon like Charaka and Susruta. We have also this Rishi tradition ऋषि माने सेज सन्यासी ऋषि ऋषि ट्रेडिशन आमर परंपरा जो आम चवन कथा जानूँ चवन महर्षि चवन who had pleased both the देवतांकर जो फिजिशियन असंती अश्विनी कुमार दी जन को प्लीज करी पाखु आशीर्वाद पाई अनेक औषधि से तैयारी करि पारथिले सो मेडिकल प्रैक्टिस is not a new to India to Indian soil or not new to Indian society. But here in during this time we see that medical practitioners also were employed in various capacities by the state. There were 20 hospitals in Delhi, so far one person record is concerned. There were also court physicians numbering to 1200 and this is referred by Muslim scholar. Medical practitioners were called in the name of Hakims. Hakims. And these Hakims also achieved mansabs from Mughal ruler. In this context, we get the name of Hakim Mamina Siraji got the mansab of 1000 jat and annual allowance of 20,000 rupees by Jahangir. Similarly, Hakim Daud was a court physician. Shahjahan also bestowed mansab of 1500 and 200 rupees, 22,000 rupees in cash on the Hakim. Hakim Ulmok, another physician of Shahjahan, who also received mansab of 2,000. So in this way, we can say that physician class was also very important during this time. Besides, in 17th century, class of astrologer and astronomer became very much common in Indian society. Astrologer कहले आमे ज्योतिष मानक बुझो जो माने जातक देखंती हाथ देखंती. There were so many of them that we have got reference from the foreign sources, those who visited into India during this time. One such visitor was Niccolò Manussi, who wrote his memoir from 1615 to 1712, mentioned the presence of this class in each noble's elite's household. से कहउचंती जे प्रत्येक नोबल मानकर सम्भ्रांत श्रेणी घर मानकर गोटे गोटे एभलिया ज्योतिष माने एम्प्लॉय हेकी थिले बा नियुक्त हेकी थिले एवं से कहती that बाजार और मार्केट वाज filled with this type of folk माने एभलिया लोकन द्वारा सारा बाजार परिपूर्ण हेकी रहउतला. आज भी जिमिति हम देखुचे बाजार भीतर गला को मार्केट भीतर गला को किमिति बहुत लोक जातक देखुवे रास्ता कड़े बसथिया लोक सेटा सेबेठु चली आसुची. Besides this group, middle class and other professional group, another most important group that we come to know, that is the trading groups. And these trading groups of merchants and peddlers was a common sight in the medieval period. And we see that Kambe during this time, during the time of Delhi Sultanate, which was annexed to Delhi Sultanate by 1304, 1305. And it emerged as a center of activities of immigrants Muslim merchants. Kambe Bandara, जोटा कि वेस्टर्न उपकूल अवस्थित एवं 1304-5 बेलू को ये दिल्ली सुल्तान सहित सुल्तानट भितर अंतर्भुक्त हो सारी से बंदर को बहुत विदेशी मुसलमान मर्चेंट्स माने आसुथबार आमे तथ्य पाई था एवं यही बंदर पाखरे से माने मध्य विशालकाय दुर्ग बा हार्म्य तैयारी करिकी रहउथले बिकॉज ऑफ ट्रेडिंग फैसिलिटी. Ibn Battuta, who came during this time, he visited or he got some information. His accounts clearly gives that the power and prestige of this merchant during the time of Muhammad bin Tughlaq was immense. And also he said that the royal power of administration was entrusted upon these merchants living in Combe. Whatever it may be, there was a hierarchy or stratigraphical position among these merchants or hierarchical position. କହିବାର କଥା ହେଉଛି ସବୁ ମାର୍ଚେଣ୍ଟ ସମାନ ନଥିଲେ এই ମାର୍ଚେଣ୍ଟ ମାନଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ କିଛି ବଡ଼ ଥିଲେ କିଛି ସାନ ଥିଲେ କିଛି ମଝିରେ ଥିଲେ so there was a hierarchy. There were merchants who were retailer, those who were doing marketing or those who were dealing with the merchandise like food grains, those who were wholesaler, those who were keeping stock of these goods, wholesaler, and there were also retailer and also merchants who were, or we can say the trader who were moving from one place to another place for selling and purchasing their merchandise. We get the name of, in Western Rajasthan, we get the name of one such retailer who were called Fidias. And below them, these Fidias were retailer. Retailer माने खुचरा व्यापारी जो माने बहुत जिनस आनिकी अल्प बहुत करिकी लोक मानकु बिकंती जो माने हमर दुकानदार साधारण गोटे दुकानदार. And there were also below them there were Pichayat जहाँ को आम ईशनरेंट कही परिवा of the localities. जेमिति तमे देखिथिबो आमे बाजार को गले दुकानदार बस्तांती बिकंती आम साही मोहल्ला मानकरे साही रे बस्ती रे मोहल्ला मानकरे आम गली रे गोटे गोटे छोटिया दुकान करिकी बसथिबे जने दी जण जो मान पाखर आमे जाइकी 250 300 200 ग्राम रो जिंस किनि आनु दुकान को गले टिके बड़ दुकान गले किले 2 किलो रो जिंस आनु. So this is the thing that the Bichayats were the small retailers of the localities. Similarly, there was another name of the merchants was Vyapari. In Ada Bholiki Shunanti. And they were operating across Progonas. Progona mane gote district ba gote tahsil bhitar semane operate karanti jaha koi pariba ame type of wholesaler. They were not local merchant but outsider. But Mahajans were local merchants. And there were a separate class of merchants who were called Bolodias or Banjaras. And these Bolodias and Banjaras were specialized in grain trade. They were not selling their merchandise or goods at one place, but moving from one place to another. Similarly, there were also another type of merchant who were called Sa merchant. They dealt in food grain. And from this Saha, we get the name of the Sahukar. They were the wholesaler who were transacting transacting goods and ensuring continuous supply of grain to the urban market. It means they were wholesaler as well as they were the supplier of grains from the rural areas to the urban area. We can say that they were some sort of big merchants having a very wide network between village and town. and they had different types of storage, kothas, and bhakaris for storing the commodities. The state also imposed taxes on different merchants on different types of merchant on different basis. So different kinds of tax were levied on the merchant depending upon their capacity as well as nature of their trade. As I told you, as Bichayas had to pay both Mapo and Biswa. That Biswa is a tax, Mapo that is has been generally taken as sell tax. Mahajan had to pay Dan, local merchants. So Bania, another word for this merchant who possessed kothis in the urban areas and were called Kothiwala in western Rajasthan. This term Bania generally we get from western Rajasthan and later on we get it for the merchants with a great or big stature for throughout India. सारा भारत ପାଇଁ ଆମେ ଏ ୱାର୍ଡଟା ମଧ୍ୟ ବଣିଆ ପାଉ ବଣିଆ ମାନେ କାହାକୁ କୁହାଯାଏ ଯେଉଁମାନଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଯଥେଷ୍ଟ ଅଧିକା ପଇସା ଥାଏ ଏବଂ ଯେଉଁମାନେ ବଡ଼ ମାତ୍ରାରେ ବେପାର କରନ୍ତି ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ବଣିଆ କୁହାଯାଏ ନା ଆମେ ୱେଷ୍ଟର୍ଣ୍ଣ ରାଜସ୍ଥାନରୁ ଏଭଳିଆ କେତେକ ପାଉଛୁ ଯେଉଁମାନଙ୍କୁ ବଣିଆମାନଙ୍କୁ କୋଠେବାଲା ମଧ୍ୟ କୁହାଯାଏ ସାଧାରଣତଃ ଏଇ ବଣିଆ ଶବ୍ଦଟା ଆମର ସଂସ୍କୃତ ଶବ୍ଦ ବାଣିଜ୍ୟ ଏବଂ ବଣିକ ଶବ୍ଦରୁ ଆସିଥାଇପାରେ କିଛି ଲୋକ କହନ୍ତି ଯେହେତୁ ବସିକି ଇଂରେଜ ଆସିବା ସମୟରେ ଏଇ ଯେଉଁ ହାଟ ବଜାର ଲାଗୁଥିଲା ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଏଇ ଯେଉଁ ଦୋକାନୀମାନେ ବଡ଼ ବଡ଼ ବରଗଛ ମୂଳେ ସେତେବେଳେ ତ ମାର୍କେଟ ଯେମିତି ଆମର ଆଜିକାଲି ଲାଇଟ୍ ଏବଂ କୋଠା ଘର ହେଇକି ମାର୍କେଟ ଅଛି ସେମିତି ନଥିଲା ଦୋକାନୀମାନେ ବରଗଛ ମୂଳେ ବସିକି ହାଟ ଲଗାଉଥିଲେ ହାଟ ବଜାର ଲାଗୁଥିଲା ସୋ ବୋଧେ ସେମାନେ ହେଉଛନ୍ତି ବେନିୟନ ଟ୍ରି ତଳେ ବସିକି କାମ କରୁଥିବା ଯୋଗୁଁ ତାଙ୍କୁ ବଣିଆ ବୋଲି ଇଂଲିଶ ମାନେ କହିଲେ ସେ ବଣିଆ ଶବ୍ଦଟା ସେବେଠୁ ଆସିଲାଣି ନ we get the word ବଣିଆ in medieval time and this word must be a offshoot of the term original term banik or vanijya which is a Sanskrit term of ancient times which was which was a continuous development of this terminology, which come to the medieval period with the name of Bonias. So then we shall come to artisan group. It's a very big chapter, big unit. This may take also whole of today's class. Uh, I'm just going to tell you briefly about different types of artisans. Then we shall come to religion, women and slavery, then religious group. Just we can take 5 minutes break, then we shall come back. Now, in my last class, maximum of you left after this break. What is the cause? I don't know. If you want to leave, then please inform me and go. But I think that if this is an important chapter and there's a lot of things to know uh, as a matter of information, you should have some patience to stay. So after 5 minutes, we shall meet. Uh, so it's a break for not tea but water. Thank you. So back again. Okay. Now there was a distinct need, a requirement of things which we come to know during this time, and this new things, new requirement was resulted in the introduction of new technology and services, and this was the new thing, new demand created for new product, and for new product, new technology and services. And here we see that there was a change, therefore, in new social order and new social structure in the urban society. And that's why it is called urban revolution by some of the scholars like Muhammad Habib. Now the thing is that what we see, if you discuss it briefly, am I clear? Are you listening to me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If we briefly discuss it, then things will come to that comparison to the early parts of history, early part of the period, that is ancient times or early medieval period, new avenues, new technologies came into existence and they were responsible for producing new product. And this new product was in demand among the new nobility or newly formed nobility during this medieval period. And what are these things? For example, wine making or distilling. Then there were also another work that is, we can say that Rongiva, Rangraj, ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ କହିପାରିବା, coloring, coloring of cloths. There were also crafts like separating ginning, ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ କହିପାରିବା, ginning, that is separating seeds from the cotton, carding. There is ଦେଖିଥିବ ଯେ ତୁଳା ଭିଣା ଭିଣା ତୁଳା ଭିଣା ତୁଳାକୁ ଭିଣିବା, କାର୍ଡିଂ ଆଣ୍ଡ ଜିନିଂ, କପାରୁ ମଞ୍ଜିକୁ କାଢିବା ଏବଂ ଭିଣିବା। ଦେଖିଥିବ ତମମାନେ ଆଜିକାଲି ଯୋଉ ଗୋଟେ ସାଇକେଲରେ ଗୋଟେ ବଡ ଦଣ୍ଡା ଧରିଥିବେ, ତା ଉପରେ ଗୋଟେ ଥିବ ଟିକେ ଚଉଡା ରକମର ଗୋଟେ ଦଉଡ଼ି ବନ୍ଧା ହେଇଥିବ। That is a new technique initially developed, introduced during this time. So what we see that the process of urbanization helped in the expansion of artisans and trading caste. The study for Punjab alone by one scholar Chetan Singh gives us the idea that largely the artisans in Punjab were Muslim. 90%, 92% of the jullahs or artisans were Muslim. Kamnagar, Kamangar, that is bow maker, ଧନୁ ତିଆରି ଯେଉଁମାନେ କରନ୍ତି, were largely Muslim. Similarly, artisans like Raj, Kalal, Rangrej and Telli were also Muslim. Now let's have some discussion about different types of artisans, what they were called during medieval time. That we see one work that is a bohi, is a book of 1379 written by one Mullah Daud. It is Chandayan. He refers to one Panchavan or fifth Varna, Panchavan, who were outcast. And in this book, he mentioned that the presence of Pauni Praja refers to the people of low caste, service group, or artisans. Low caste, service group, or artisans. And what we see that these artisans were not always low caste or service group. Sometimes among the artisans, there were some people who used to get the special royal favor. We shall come to it. There were the artisans like Rangbaj or Rangsaj. Rangsaj was a group of people who were dyer. ଆମର ଯୋଉ ଲୁଗା ତିଆରି ହୁଏ ତାକୁ ପ୍ରଥମେ ଡାଏ କରାଯାଏ, ରଙ୍ଗାଯାଏ, ତାଙ୍କୁ they were having a prominent place in the society, artisan society. Then Dhunia, as I told you, jo cotton cadder, that is Tula Bhina. Then Lakhera, that is lac worker. Chitera, painter. Kundigar, pressure of cloth, जो मैंने आयरन करती. राज, कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर, ब्रिकलेयर. राज शब्द बोधे आज आम रेजा बोली कहूचे, स्त्री लोक वर्कर मान जो घर काम करते रेजा कह जाए. Then there were also Sisgar, glass worker. Tathera, metal worker. Sakligar, sharpener of knife, जो छुरी इत्यादि धार करते. Then there were Kagadi, that is paper maker. Then Vaigar, firework maker. Bindera, pole makers in pearls and diamonds. And Kalal, that is wine distiller. So there are a number of things that we can go on about the new professions. I am not going to take all the names. Among these things, that caste of Khamar means distiller. Those are the Kalal or Khamar, as they are called. They rose to prominence. जो मैंने मद तैयारी करती. ड्यूरिंग जो मान को आमर प्राचीन अभिलेख मानकर कहुई सौंडिक, मेडिएवल टाइम रे कहुची खलाल, एवं तार गोटे पार्ट को मध्य कहुची कलाल. Khamar or Kalal. They were enjoying high status among the nobles. We see that during Muhammad bin Taghlaq's reign, one such Khalal or Khamar, his name was Azizuddin Khamar, who enjoyed higher status among the nobles of the time. Then with the introduction of new technique, new form of industry also appeared. As a result of specialization, super specialization, and division of labor came to be prominent during the medieval period. नुआ तकनीक आसिला, नुआ नुआ प्रोडक्ट पाई नुआ नुआ तकनीक आसिला, एवं ये प्रोडक्ट गुड़ाक मुख्यतः सुख स्वाच्छंदर प्रोडक्ट थिला. एवं नुआ नुआ टेक्निक पाई नुआ नुआ प्रोडक्ट पाई नुआ नुआ टेक्निक पाई नुआ नुआ इंडस्ट्री भी आसिला, न्यू फॉर्म्स ऑफ इंडस्ट्री आसिला. एवं ता सहित ताल देई नुआ ग्रुप ଆସିଲେ ଯେଉଁମାନେ କି ବିଭିନ୍ନ କାମରେ ସିଦ୍ଧହସ୍ତ ଥିଲେ, ସ୍ୱତନ୍ତ୍ରତା ହାସଲ କରିଥିଲେ, ସ୍କିଲ୍ ହାସଲ କରିଥିଲେ, ସକ୍ଷମତା ହାସଲ କରିଥିଲେ. And in this period, what we see that with the introduction of cotton gin and cotton carders bow ମାନେ ଯେଉଁ ଜିନିଷଟା ମୁଁ କହିଲି ସାଇକେଲରେ ନେଇକି ଯଦି ତମେ ସହରରେ କେତେବେଳେ ଦେଖିଥିବ ତୁଳା ଭିଣା ମେସିନ୍ ନେଇକି ଯେଉଁମାନେ ଗଦି ତିଆରି କରିବାକୁ ଗାଁ ଗାଁ ବୁଲନ୍ତି, ସାହି ସାହି ବୁଲନ୍ତି ସହର ଭିତରେ, ତମେ ସେଇଟା ଦେଖିଲେ ଜାଣିପାରିବ. That is called cotton ginning bow or cotton carders bow. A new class of dhunia they appeared. They were called dhunia. And in Eastern India, there were several other castes of this category, and they were the subcaste of weaver. Weaver means tanti. And they were called Jola or Jola and Sabaka. And these castes were generally not known prior to 12th, 13th century. Perhaps these were later on developed. Art of dyeing cloths assumed specialized form of art and craft during this period. कॉटन को बा लुगा को डाइंग करिवार जो कला बा तार जो नुआ गोटे काम टेक्निक 13-14 सेंचुरी स्पेशलिटी बा स्वतंत्र स्थान ग्रहण करथिला एवं से काम करिया पई जो माने स्वतंत्र भाबरे तालीम प्राप्त थिले बा कहि परिबा स्वतंत्रता हासिल करथिले सेमानकु रंगरेज कुहा गला. So they also formed, they were all Muslim. Very few Hindus were there doing this work, but they also formed separate castes during this period. Now, coming to some food article, we see that specialization in sugarcane production, there were several castes were identified with the association of the sugarcane production. In Eastern India, these castes engaged in jaggery making from sugarcane was called modakas, and those who prepared jaggery from date palms were called siudi. बुझेला? हेलो हेलो
आज्ञा सर.
अरे तो मैंने अच्छो ना
आज्ञा सर अच्छो सर.
मो जहा कहली बुझी पालो किछि
आज्ञा सर.
खाली आज्ञा कहले हबनी कोन बुझला देखो कोन बुझलो मु कहउथली आखु चाष एवं आखुरु निर्मित विभिन्न प्रकार पदार्थ तैयारी करिबा एवं सेथिरे कौशल हासिल करिथिबा विभिन्न व्यक्ति को नेकी नुआ जाति बा नुआ प्रकार गोष्ठी तैयारी होला एवं सेमानको नाम मध्य नुआ नुआ आसिला. ईस्टर्न इंडिया बा पूर्व भारत जो आम बेंगल ओडिशा कहि परिबा आसाम कहि परिबा सेठी सुगर केन जो माने गुड़ तैयारी करथुले तांको मोडक कुआउथला जो माने ताଳ गछ बा खजीर गछरु रसरु गुड़ तैयारी करथुला तांको सिउड़ी बा सियाळ बोली कुआउथला. आज मध्य से टाइटल अच्छी सियाळ टाइटल सिउड़ी रु सियाळ हे जेचन समय नॉट लाइक सियाळ माने जाकेल नोती सियाळ. एवं when paper was introduced by Turks during 13th century, a distinct profession of paper making emerged, and they were called kagoji. And Teli caste was very ancient, and we get the name of this caste in different inscription of our ancient times in the name of Toileka, oilman. Now this caste came to be known as Teli in short form, during this time, but their nature and form was somewhat different. And in Delhi, most of the Delhi in Punjab were Muslims. So this suggests that in course of time, Muslim maximum Muslim, most of the Muslim population, most of the this profession was adopted by Muslims. So there were other castes also. Kalaigar, another caste or class of people called Kalaigar. These are all professional caste, professional group doing different types of profession, and in course of time they came to be identified with this name, and they formed their caste, their separate caste also, identified with separate caste. So Kalaigar was the name to a person who used to do works in tin or dasta. ଟିଣ ବା ଦସ୍ତାରେ ଯେଉଁମାନେ କାମ କରୁଥିଲେ ତାଙ୍କୁ କଲାଇଗାର ବୋଲି କୁହାଯାଉଥିଲା. Similarly, there was position of ustad, who was generally superior in the craftsmanship, who was head among the artisans, and ustad was generally commanding respect in the society. Caste and clan affiliation played a vital role in social relation. Hindus, as we know, that they were divided on caste basis, but caste grouping were generally absent in the among the Muslims. But in place of caste or jati, what we get, the word we get, biradri, brotherhood. In the 5th century, 15th century, on the line of Hindu caste system. So आम जमी हिंदू मानकर कास्ट सिस्टम अच्छी विभिन्न प्रकार काम कर जाति बोली कहुची मुसलमान मानकर से जाति कथा नथिला से मानकर कौन थिला कास्ट सिस्टम जगह तंकर सेटा कहउतला बिरादरी और ब्रदरहुड जो धर गोटे कागजी जो माने काम करछंती कागजी बिरादरी बोली कहउतला that was a synonymous of Hindu caste. Okay, so this is about artisan. Now come to slavery, then women. We shall rest. You will read. So generally, we see that during this time, slave system developed in India in medieval time. Slavery developed because the need for new establishing new craft led to the premium on slave labor that could be used whatever the way the master wished. In short term, large-scale immigration of artisans from the Islamic land was accompanied by extensive forcible enslavement inside the country and the formation of a large slave market in Delhi. This is Muhammad Habib who has written that नुआ टेक्निक नुआ जिनस तैयारी करबा कारखाना बसेवा सहित दरकार पड़ला लेबरर मानकर जो लेबरर माने काम करिवे बहुत सस्तारे एवं सेति पई जबरदस्ती हो बा निज इच्छार हो ए भलिया लोक मान को अणाला जो मान को स्लेव बोली कुआगला बा दास भाबरे से मान को कारखाना रे खटागला एवं मैक्सिमम ऑफ द स्लेव वेर वर्किंग इन हाउसहोल्ड घरे मध्य तांको भीतर अधिकांश स्लेव काम करथिबे एवं दिल्ली एवं अन्यान्य बड़ सहर मानकर भारत रे स्लेव मार्केट बा दास मान को किना बिका करिया पई मार्केट मध्य परिचालित होउतला बा मार्केट मध्य थिला जेमिति आमे परिया मार्केट को जाई परिया कोनछु सेमिति एठी मध्य स्लेव मार्केट थिला. During this time we see that there were 1,80,000 slaves. Out of 12,000 were employed as artisan. Just a minute. Now, as I have told you, that there were 1,80,000 slaves during Firoz Shah Tughlaq's rule. Out of that 1,80,000, 12 lakhs were employed as artisans. During Delhi Sultanate time, a slave girl could be purchased at the price of 8 to 15 tanka. That was during medieval time, Mughal and Sultan period. And tanka was the standard denomination of rupee coin. So 8 ରୁ 15 ଟଙ୍କା ଭିତରେ ଗୋଟେ ସ୍ଲେଭ୍ ଗାର୍ଲକୁ କିଣା ହେଇପାରିବ, depending upon the quality and beauty of the girl. And there were also, if the that amount can also rise up to 2,000, 20,000 tanka, depending upon the quality and beauty. And a slave boy could be purchased at a price of 4 dirham. 4 dirham ରେ ଗୋଟେ slave boy କିଣା ଯାଇପାରୁଥିଲା. There are, we see that the slave girls, slave boys, and slaves were also were sold, purchased, and they were generally bought as captives from different lands, either from the war or because of the necessity these people were selling themselves, like that. But one thing is that slaves in medieval India received better treatment at the hands of their master, and they were not ill-treated or killed as slaves, Afro-origin slaves were meeting this situation in 19th century in America and elsewhere in Europe. ଭାରତରେ ମିଡିଆଲ ପିରିୟଡ଼ ଆମେ ଦେଖୁଛୁ ଏ ସ୍ଲେଭ୍ ମାନଙ୍କର ଅବସ୍ଥା ଟିକେ ଭଲ ଥିଲା ଏବଂ ଆଫ୍ରୋ ଅରିଜିନ୍ ଯେଉଁ ଆଫ୍ରିକା ଅରିଜିନ୍ ଯେଉଁ ସ୍ଲେଭ୍ ମାନଙ୍କ ସହିତ ଯେଉଁ ଭଳିଆ ବ୍ୟବହାର ହେଉଥିଲା ୟୁରୋପୀୟ ୱାର୍ଲଡରେ ବା ଆମେରିକା ୱାର୍ଲଡରେ 19th centuryରେ ସେଭଳିଆ ବ୍ୟବହାର ଭାରତରେ ଆମେ ମିଡିଆବଲ ସମୟରେ ପାଉନା, କାରଣ ମ୍ୟାକ୍ସିମମ୍ ସେ ହାଉସ ହୋଲ୍ଡରେ କାମ କରୁଥିଲେ, ସେମାନଙ୍କ ପ୍ରତି ଦୟା ଦେଖାଯାଉଥିଲା ଏବଂ ଦରକାର ପଡ଼ିଲେ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ନିଜର ପୁଅ ବା ଝିଅ ଭଳି ମଧ୍ୟ ଦେଖୁଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ନିଜର ଫ୍ୟାମିଲି ମେମ୍ବର ଭାବରେ ଦେଖୁଥିଲେ ମଧ୍ୟ। ତମେ ଯଦି ଇତିହାସକୁ ଆମେ ପଢ଼ିବା, ପଲିଟିକାଲ ହିଷ୍ଟ୍ରିକୁ ପଢ଼ିବା ମିଡିଆବଲ ସମୟର, then we can go to that point where we can say that Qutbuddin Aybak, who was a slave of Muhammad Ghori, he became the Sultan of Turkish occupied area, Delhi and adjoining area, Muhammad bin Tughlaq. ଆମେ ସୁଲତାନ ଅଫ୍ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ କହିପାରିବାନି, କାରଣ ସେତେବେଳେ ପୁରା ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ ସୁଲତାନେଟକୁ ଆସିନଥିଲା, କେବେ ବି ସୁଲତାନେଟ ଭିତରୁ ପୁରା ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ ଆସିନଥିଲା। ଯେଉଁ ବହିରେ ଲେଖା ହେଇଛି ୟୁନିଫାଏଡ, ଏଇଟା ଭୁଲ ଲେଖା ହେଇଛି। ପ୍ରଥମେ ଲେଖା ହେଇନି that is unity, political unity was established. Political unity କେବେ ନଥିଲା, ମୋଗଲଙ୍କ ସମୟ ନଥିଲା କି ସୁଲତାନର ସମୟ ନଥିଲା। ସେମିତି କୁତୁବୁଦ୍ଦିନ ଆଇବାଙ୍କର ସ୍ଲେଭ୍ ଥିଲେ କିଏ? ଇଲତୁତମିଶ, ଇଲାବରୀ ସ୍ଲେଭ୍, ଇଲାବରୀ ଅଞ୍ଚଳ ଆସିଥିଲେ। ସିଏ ମଧ୍ୟ ତାଙ୍କର ଜଇଁ ହେଲେ ଏବଂ ତାପରେ ସୁଲତାନ ହେଲେ। ସିମିଲାରଲି ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ଅବସ୍ଥାରେ ଆମେ ଅନେକ ରାଜାଙ୍କୁ ବି ଦେଖିଛୁ ଯେଉଁମାନେ ହେଇଛନ୍ତି, ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଦାସ ବଂଶ ବୋଲି ଏଇ ବଂଶଟାକୁ ବି କୁହାଯାଏ। ଏଇ ଦିଲ୍ଲୀ ସୁଲତାନେଟ, ତର୍କିଶ ସୁଲତାନେଟକୁ ଦାସ ବଂଶ ବୋଲି କୁହାଯାଏ। So in this way, Alauddin Khilji ତାଙ୍କ କକାଙ୍କ ଝିଅକୁ ବାହା ହେଇଥିଲେ, କିନ୍ତୁ ସେ ସ୍ଲେଭ୍ ନଥିଲେ। So in this way, we see that slaves were treated as son. Sometimes they were also adopted as their son-in-law if the slave was very handsome and very active, having some achievements as heroic deeds, they were also having some relationship with the family. So economically, slavery was a cheap supply of labor, and politically it helped to establish aristocracy. Now, Alauddin Khiljiଙ୍କର ଗୋଟେ slave ଥିଲା Malik Kafur, and with the help of that Malik Kafur, Alauddin Khilji could acquire the territories in the deep south. So slaves were also entrusted with the very um, great responsibility and were having confidence of their master. So this is about slavery. Now women. Generally, condition of women as we shall discuss in medieval society, it was not that of a very good scene. ଏତେ ଭଲ ନଥିଲା ଏତେ ଭଲ ଦୃଶ୍ୟ ଆମେ ଦେଖିବାକୁ ପାଆନ୍ତିନି women ମାନଙ୍କର ପୋଜିସନକୁ ନେଇକି it was somewhat a subordinate position that women were having during this time. We get different types of literary sources, references in different books as well as different personality. Those have given different ideas about the position of women. Women ମାନଙ୍କର ଅବସ୍ଥା ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କର ସାମାଜିକ ସ୍ଥିତି ସମ୍ପର୍କରେ ଯଦି ଆମେ ଆଲୋଚନା କରିବା ତାହେଲେ ଦେଖିବା ଯେ ସେମିତି କିଛି ଏତେ ସୁନ୍ଦର ଦୃଶ୍ୟ ଦେଖିବାକୁ ମିଳିବନି ସେ ସମୟର ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାର ଲେଖା ବ୍ୟକ୍ତିମାନଙ୍କର ଷ୍ଟେଟମେଣ୍ଟ ବା ଉକ୍ତିକୁ ଯଦି ଆମେ ଉଦାହରଣ ଦେଇ କହିବା women ମାନଙ୍କୁ ସେତେଟା ସହଜ ବା ସମାନ ନଜରରେ ଦେଖାଯାଉ ନଥିଲା Now, as I have already quoted one book, Mullah Daud, in his Chandaya, where he has given the argument that women should not be given much freedom and they should be kept under control. Similarly, this book has your study material has quoted about Kabir, about Surdas, about Tulsidas. How far that is true, we are not sure. But one thing is sure that in general, women position was not that good. In Padmavat, Jayce's writing Padmavat, picture भी ହେଇଛି ତମେ ଜାଣିଥିବ ସବୁ ଏହା ଉପରେ ଗୋଟେ controversy ବି ହେଇଥିଲା Padma in his Padmavat no such voice has been uttered in favor of women's right. Rather, women were encouraged to commit sati after the death of their husband. Only thing that we get that there was a poet as well as a very great devotee, Surdas, who was blind. But Surdas' depiction, from his depiction, we can know that women were freedom loving and some sort of freedom and rights were advocated in Surdas' writing or composition, we can see. Similarly, it has been quoted that Tulsidas has equated women with Dholo as well as Sudra, which is not always correct. It has been much argued. If you have gone through different debates as well as discussion that Tulsidas has given, and that Dholo, Shudra and Nari, Tadanaki Adhikari, like that, it has been mentioned, but we are not sure whether the meaning of Tulsidas was like that. It has been mentioned that Islam bestowed upon Muslim women comparatively greater right, and Timurid and Mongol tradition alike, women were taken in high esteem. Mongol queens usually shared the seats in the court and freely ate and drink. But by 12th and 13th centuries, when Islam made inroads in a big way in India, the laws of the new ruling elite were in no way drastically different. So ସେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ମୋଙ୍ଗଲ ମାନେ ତାଙ୍କର ଘର ସ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କୁ ଯଥେଷ୍ଟ ସମ୍ମାନ ଦଉଥିଲେ, ତାଙ୍କୁ ଫ୍ରିଲି ଖାଇବା ପିଇବା ପାଇଁ ଦିଆଯାଉଥିଲା ଏବଂ ଦରକାର ପଡ଼ିଲେ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ରାଜନୈତିକ କାମରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ହସ୍ତକ୍ଷେପ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଦିଆଯାଉଥିଲା। ଏଇଟା ଆମେ ଜାଣିଛୁ। ଶାହଜାହାନଙ୍କ ଝିଅ ହଉ କିମ୍ବା ଜାହାଙ୍ଗୀରଙ୍କ ମେହରୁନିଶା ତାଙ୍କ ସ୍ତ୍ରୀ ହଉ ବା ଇଏ ଯେଉଁମାନଙ୍କ କଥା କୁହାଯାଇଛି ଦିଆ ହେଉଥିଲା। କିନ୍ତୁ ସାଧାରଣ କଥା କହିଲେ ଜେନେରାଲ କଣ୍ଡିସନରେ ସ୍ତ୍ରୀମାନଙ୍କର ଭାଗ୍ୟ କ'ଣ ଥିଲା ସେଥିରୁ ଆମେ ଭଲ ଭାବରେ ଜାଣିପାରିବା ଯେ ପର୍ଦ୍ଦା ସିଷ୍ଟମ୍ ଥିଲା, ମୁହଁ ଲୁଚିକି ରଖିବାକୁ ପଡ଼ୁଥିଲା ଏବଂ ଚାରିଟା ବିବାହ ପ୍ରଥା ଏସବୁ ଜିନିଷରୁ ମାନେ ପଲିଗାମି ଏସବୁ ଜିନିଷରୁ ଆମେ ଜାଣିପାରିବା ସ୍ତ୍ରୀମାନଙ୍କର କେତେ ଅଧିକାର ଥିଲା କେତେ ନଥିଲା। ସୁଫି ହଁ ଆମେ ଜାଣିଛେ ଇଲତୁତମିଶଙ୍କ ଝିଅ ରେଜିଆ ସେ ମଧ୍ୟ କିଛି ଦିନ ଶାସନ କରିଥିଲେ, କିନ୍ତୁ ultimately she had to face the resistance of the nobles. So why, if the Islam or Muslims they were giving their own women a lot of, then why Regia had to face a lot of resistance at the hands of the Turkish nobles? It is true that some Sufi saints accepted women devotees, women followers, and they also have some concession for women followers, but that was not an universal one. And in the society, early marriage and dowry was a common feature in medieval society. Even girls were given marriage at early age, at early age, 4 years of old. 4 years marriage, girls were also given marriage. Akbar tried to make it strictly 16 years for boys and 14 for girls, but that was hardly accepted or followed. But whatever Akbar had tried, did a noble job by restricting the age of marriage. And dowry was more common, both in higher and a rich society. And as I told you, polygamy was a matter of fact very much common among the elite society. Dowry, a divorce system, was not generally accepted among the elite class of people in both Hindu and Muslim, but dowry system was very much prevalent among the Muslim, low class Muslim, and as well as in Hindu, among the Hindu also. And I have already told you that there was Parda system in this society. Not that all women were treated very badly, or there were also educated women who were also practicing medicine, ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ କହୁଥିଲେ ହାକିମ ବୋଲି, and there were also women ruler, as I have told you. Akbar's foster mother, Maham Anga, was a great woman who controlled the administration for a very long period on behalf of Akbar. He had some women follower. With them, she was controlling the entire administration when Akbar was a young boy of 14 or 15 years of age. And that government was also called petticoat government. Now, Jahangir's wife Nur Jahan and Shahjahan's daughter Jahanara Begum, I have already told you about Rajia Sultan. They were all well-known women during medieval time who exercised considerable clout in political affair of the state. Not only women of the royal family, but also there were concubines of some sultan, and their associates. They also had enough influence, but common women or those women living in the very lowest strata of the society, for example, peasant women, they were enjoying greater freedom than the middle class women or women living in the noble household. Why so? It is because these peasant women were co-producer, partner in the economic activity of the family. So we see that Ahir women of Braj joining freely with Raslila or a festive occasion in Brajbhumi or Vrindavan, as per the Surdas composition of Bhajan. Similarly, most of the references we get in the matter of women from the lower strata, they were a very great deal of rights as compared to the most cruel and wicked custom that prevailed during this time. It was sati, and I have already told you. And we got a number of things that in Rajasthan, how Rajput women were committing Johar. Johar is a kind of sati pratha. You know that when Alauddin Khilji attacked Rana Sangram Singh's fort, and Rana was killed, then his wife Rani Padmavati committed Johar or accepted death by herself. Johar, that is called Johar. Similarly, there were many such things that we come to know about the women and sati system, which was no doubt a very heinous crime. Then, coming to religious classes, we have several things to discuss. For example, in among the Musliman, there were elite group and intellectual class. In the religious sphere, they were called ulemas, and there were also Hindu Pandit. Besides that, there developed a cult that was called Sufi cult during this time, and simultaneously a Bhakti cult was also developed, and it was in South India. Nayanar and Alwar, two types of saint, Bhakti saints, worshipping Shiva and Vishnu respectively. They first started this movement. Later on, around 13th 14th century AD, in North India, this Bhakti cult was very much popular. Among the Bhakti saints, there were Kabir, Nanak, Sri Chaitanya, Ramanuj, like that, Tulsidas, like that. They put emphasis upon the bhakti as a mode and means to achieve the grace of God. Similarly, Sufi saints were also creating atmosphere to convey the message of God through their different types of song, and also ଯେମିତି ଭକ୍ତିମୟ ସେମାନେ ଭଜନ କରୁଥିଲେ, ସେମାନେ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାର ସଙ୍ଗ ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ they both the cult, both the sect tried to convey the message that God is one and ultimate, and the ultimate way of achieving God and His blessing and mercy is through bhakti, devotion, by prayer. And no doubt, ulema, they enjoyed a great deal of power as well as prestige in the court of the rulers. They were given jagirs, they were giving monetary help as well as patronized financially. Still then, ulemas were financially, ulemas were also equally exercising their clout in the among the nobles as well as royal people. Ulemas were no doubt were regarded as the preceptor in the realm of religious world. But in course of time, at certain instances, ulemas were not always favored. Sometimes, in order to keep the ulema under control, sultans or the rulers of different Muslim states, they used to favor and patronize Sufi saints who were also operating at this time. So this was about the political condition of the period. Sorry, as I told you, not political but also condition of religion during this period. So you go through the your study material, you can have idea very well. I think this much, the 21, and that is peninsular India, social structure in peninsular India, landed elite, political elite, these Nayaks and other landed elite, you can go through. If you are not able to understand, if any doubt cropped up, crop up, then please come with your doubt tomorrow. Tomorrow we shall meet again at 5 o'clock. I shall only meet your doubts, clarify your doubt. Then we shall go to 22. That is socio-religious reform movement. That is bhakti. I have already given you some idea, and we shall go on. Okay. Thank you very much. You any doubt? We can discuss tomorrow. Have a good day, good night, good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Welcome. Welcome.